CNN reported that federal investigators were looking into whether or not Bonds committed perjury during his 2003 grand jury testimony relating to the BALCO steroids scandal when he testified that he believed a clear substance in a cream given to him by personal trainer Greg Anderson were flaxseed oil and arthritis balm. The United States Attorney's Office in San Francisco brought evidence before another grand jury to determine if Bonds should be indicted. Before testifying to the original grand jury in 2003, witnesses including Bonds were told that they could not be charged with any crime other than perjury based on their testimony. On July 5, 2006, Anderson was found in contempt of court by U.S. District Judge William Alsup for refusing to testify before the grand jury investigating perjury accusations against Bonds. Anderson was denied bail and immediately sent to the Federal Correctional Institution in Dublin, California. Anderson's attorney, Mark Dragos, said he would file an appeal based on his assertion that the subpoena to testify violated Anderson's plea bargain agreement in the BALCO case. Later that month, the grand jury investigating the incident retired without issuing an indictment. Anderson was immediately released and promptly subpoenaed to testify before a new grand jury that would take up the case. Dragos stated that his client would continue to refuse to testify. Days later, federal prosecutors obtained Bonds' medical files as part of their perjury investigation. Bonds' former girlfriend, Kimberly Bell, testified that Bonds blamed an elbow injury on steroid use. According to the San Francisco Chronicle, prosecutors had subpoenaed the documents nearly 2 months earlier, but Bonds' attorneys went to federal court to stop the government from obtaining them. On August 17, 2006, Anderson again refused to testify before the grand jury investigating Bonds. Judge Alsup ordered Anderson to return to court August 28 for a contempt hearing. In requesting the hearing, prosecutors for the first time publicly acknowledged they were targeting Bonds. Anderson was held in contempt of court at the August 28 hearing and sent to federal prison for a second time. Judge Alsup said Anderson had provided no legal justification for refusing to tell the grand jury on August 17 whether he had supplied steroids to Bonds or other athletes, or even whether he knew Bonds. Dragos said he would file an appeal with the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. Anderson was released from prison on October 5 after serving 37 days. Judge Alsup ordered his release because the Federal Appeals Court hadn't affirmed the contempt order within the required 30 days after Anderson was jailed. The 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal had sent the contempt order back to Judge Alsup, thus delaying any ruling. The main contention of Anderson's appeal is that a secret, illegally recorded tape of him discussing Bonds' steroid use was the basis for the grand jury questions he refused to answer. Prosecutors, however, said the tape was legal and was made in a face-to-face meeting with Anderson. Although Judge Alsup dismissed Anderson's tape claim and others, the 9th Circuit Court sent Anderson's appeal back to the judge, saying Alsup's ruling regarding the tape was not clear enough. In clarifying his order, Alsup said he agreed with prosecutors that there was ample evidence beyond the tape to question Anderson. Prosecutors also said the questions they wanted answered were based on athletes' secret testimony in the Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative case and a search of Anderson's house that turned up drug records, some with Bonds' name on it. Other than the tape dispute, the 9th Circuit Court had rejected the merits of Anderson's appeal. In November, after the order was clarified, the 9th Circuit Court agreed to hear Anderson's argument that his entire grand jury process was tainted because the government let the grand jury hear the tape. If the appeals court had agreed that the tape unfairly contributed to Anderson's guilty plea, his conviction could have been thrown out, even though Anderson had already completed his 3-month sentence. In the disputed tape recording, first reported by the San Francisco Chronicle, Anderson reportedly told an unidentified person that Bonds was using drugs which could not be detected. Judge Alsup, who had read a transcript of the tape, called it as worthless a piece of evidence as I've ever seen, according to newspaper reports. On November 16, the 9th Circuit Court rejected Anderson's appeal and ruled that he must return to prison for refusing to testify before the grand jury investigating Bonds. The court ordered him to report to the Federal Correctional Institution in Dublin by November 20. The court agreed with Judge Alsup, ruling there was ample evidence beyond the tape to justify the grand jury's interest in questioning Anderson about Bonds. Anderson's lawyers announced they would seek an appeal before the entire 9th Circuit Court. In January 2007, U.S. Attorney Kevin V. Ryan resigned and was replaced by Scott Schools. Despite rumors the probe into bonds would be hampered, the Associated Press reported that by February 2007, the investigation had resumed. The AP quoted Michael Raines, a lawyer for Bonds, as saying there is absolutely no doubt that the U.S. attorney is still running a grand jury and still taking evidence that involves Bonds. There is still an active effort to indict Barry. The Ninth Circuit Court rejected Anderson's appeal in March, and Dragos stated that he intended to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. After losing the appeal, Dragos told ESPN my client is never going to speak. He has got absolutely no intention of talking. On July 21, the New York Daily News reported that the grand jury investigating Bonds had been extended for 6 months. According to the Daily News, the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Francisco is confident it will have enough evidence to secure an indictment once the grand jury resumes in September. The Daily News quoted an anonymous source as saying, prosecutors seem to feel they have a strong case. If the case is 90% now, there's no reason not to go for 100%. They aren't just waiting around for Greg Anderson. A month later, Bonds hired 2 attorneys, John Burris of Oakland and Todd Schneider of San Francisco, to defend him against what he claimed were false public statements made against him, including claims that he took steroids. The move was chiefly aimed at Boston Red Sox pitcher Curt Schilling, who made disparaging remarks about Bonds in an HBO interview with sportscaster Bob Costas. Bonds dismissed Schilling's comments,